So I actually went late. I was in the Navy right out of high school. And it's interesting because if we could have gone at 18 like we can now, then my life probably would have been a lot different. But I joined the military right when I got out of high school because I wasn't 18 yet. Soon to be, but I wasn't 18. And it was just a time in my life when I wanted to go to school, always did, but I wasn't quite prepared yet. And so on a whim, I kind of joined the Navy. And the minimum that I could do and still get the educational benefits, which I really wanted, was 4 years. And so it was definitely a scary moment in my life because I've always wanted to serve a mission. I just didn't want to be idle for that year and change, preparing for my mission. And I was kind of restless at that time in my life, and I would have been happy to serve a mission. It just wasn't an opportunity, so I joined the Navy, and that served as it gave me a lot of preparation to go and motivation just to stay focused to get ready for my mission. A lot of people, when I said that I was going to join the Navy, they just kind of wrote me off as to an eventual mission. They said, "Oh, well, we thought you were going to serve a mission. We always hoped that you'd serve a mission." And I knew that when I did join the Navy, that it could potentially be a huge stumbling block towards my mission. So I said in my mind, okay, if you're going to do this, you have to serve a mission. You have to make it work for you. And so that was my whole intent through the whole time in the Navy. Not necessarily the educational benefits or the money or productive time, but just you have to make this work towards getting on a mission. You can't let this stop you. And I'd always been a good kid, always happy to go to church, go to seminary, keep the commandments, and but I had never really been independent and on my own. And I questioned myself a little bit because I thought, it was easy for me to be good when I had I didn't have to be supervised and managed by my parents, but just knowing that they were there and their expectations and hopes for me in regards to doing the right thing and choosing the right was enough to just keep me straight, keep me good. And I was happy to do it. But I questioned myself as to, with nobody there and in a far off land, how would I do? And so I made a commitment that I was going to just help allow the Navy and make the Navy work for me to prepare spiritually and temporally for my mission. And so I kind of went into defensive mode the minute that I joined the Navy, saying I'm not going to let anything stop me from getting ready to go on my mission. And it helped tremendously. I had a lot of opportunities to talk about the church because my behavior stood out. And so when people would question it and kind of get to know me a little bit better, it gave me a lot of really unique opportunities to talk about why I lived the way that I did and why I was so different. And those missionary opportunities really just helped me to be a better missionary and be more prepared, and kind of helped me get through those first initial rites of passage that I feel every missionary has to go through, with talking about maybe some uncomfortable things, fielding hard questions, and learning how to just represent what you believe in when it's so different from what everybody else is doing. One cool thing that happened is my latter portion of the Navy, the last year and 8 months, I was in a really small installation with about 115 guys in the Middle East, and you get to know each other very intimately when you're in a group that small. Everybody knows what everybody else is into, and so I quickly became known as the religious guy or the Mormon guy, and I didn't mind because by that time I had kind of heard all the jokes and the comments and all the typical questions that military guys will ask. And I liked being that for them. I liked being their example of the Mormon church. I didn't mind one bit. And so when you get a bunch of military guys together and there's not a whole lot to do, then quickly they turn to gambling. And so they gamble on the football games during the NFL season. They'd watch them on. A lot of times we couldn't even watch them because of the time difference, but they'd still gamble. And so a lot of dollars would exchange hands on during the NFL weeks. And it was interesting to hear them go back and forth. But they just had this gambling mentality. And anytime that there was anything of debate, they'd want to gamble on it, right? And that's how they passed the time. And so one time we had this compound, this shed, and at our installations, and I don't know how these other guys, this group of guys, got into this discussion of how long it would take to run a circle around this shed, and I was involved in their initial discussions, but I came over there when they were about halfway done, and they asked me, how long do you think it would take you to run around this shed? And I used to be in track. I wasn't a track star, but it was about 400 yards, and I know about what I could run 400 yards in comfortably. And so I estimated maybe about 70 seconds. And that was a generous statement, and they all said, no way, you couldn't. I don't think they had run track. And so they all swore that it was impossible to make it around this thing in 70 seconds. Interesting bet, because it was so different from their normal wagering topics. And so they said, do it, and we'll bet you. We'll bet you $500 or something to do it. And I said, well, I don't like to gamble. And so I did settle on a wager of a watch, like a military shift. And I said, okay, if I pass it, then you have to do this duty for me. And if not, then I'll do yours sometime. I didn't feel bad about that. And they said, okay, we'll do it. And so I went and I changed my shoes and I put on my tennis shoes and I came out, and they're all excited because that's just kind of what gambling does to things. And so they said 1, 2, 3. And before I went, they said, but when you go around the back, you can't run up on the sidewalk. You have to stay off the sidewalk and be on the outside of the shed. It just extends the perimeter a little bit. They're getting nervous, right? And I said, okay. And then that's fine. And then they said, one of them said, but how are we going to know if he's honest, if he doesn't go up on the, stay close to the shed? And they said, yeah, how are we going to know? And then one of them, I still remember, his name was Gentry, he's from Louisiana. He says, he's Mormon. And they all go, oh yeah, he is Mormon. And then and that was enough for them. And they were fine. They said, okay, well that solves that. All right, let's go. And that really meant a lot to me, because I had been, in good fun, I had been ridiculed and kind of pushed around by those guys quite a bit. And I think that's just their way of kind of showing their love, if you will. And just because you're so different. But that really meant a lot to me. I don't think they meant it as a compliment in any way to me or my beliefs, but I just remember how much that meant to me. And so that gave me the extra little boost to make it around, and I ended up winning the wager, so I was happy about that.